Hey there, my lovelies. Welcome back to my channel. Oh my gosh. Today, guys, we're going to be watching along another a foodie video. We're going to be catching back up with Max Miller from Tasting History. And this time, Max is going to be showing us how to make a real, authentic gumbo. Yes. Oh my gosh. I know I've mentioned a few times, guys, but I'm a huge Princess and the Frog fan. It is actually, it's definitely my favorite Disney film. Tiana is the most fabulous princess. So yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for anything Louisiana related, anything New Orleans. So this is very exciting. So this is a proper authentic one from, I have seen a picture of the thumbnail here. It's from 1885, a proper Creole gumbo. Absolutely amazing. And you know what? I was just going to say, considering how old the recipe is, it still looks fantastic. It looks fabulous. It looks so delicious. So this has been requested by one of my wonderful patrons. This is from David. Thank you so much, my lovely. Now, David says, hey, Boomster. I like that. You were wondering about a recipe for gumbo. I absolutely was. I do have quite a few recipes from some of my wonderful patrons and a lot of you that have reached out to me. So thank you so much for taking the time to post those to me. Thank you very much. Well, Max Miller just came through with one from history. Fantastic. Here is his new video just in time for Mardi Gras. Oh, I missed Mardi Gras. This was requested about a month ago. I do apologize, David. It's how long it's taking me to record all these videos. Yes, so I've missed Mardi Gras, but hopefully Max was just in time. And this is the history of gumbo in New Orleans. Very excited to watch this, guys. I need to make a gumbo. I've got the things I need. I've got the seasonings. I've got everything now. Just need to set some time aside to actually make one and record it. But I'm very excited. So let's watch this video, guys. And if you are enjoying these reactions, don't forget to like and subscribe, my lovelies. Thank you so much. If you're interested, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. That link is over here. And if you would like to help support my channel any further, I have a Patreon account with a bustling community full of absolute wonderful people. If you want to check that out, that link is in the description below.
With Mardi Gras right around the corner, my mind always goes to one of my favorite food cities, New Orleans.
Absolutely.
Beignets, jambalaya, and gumbo. A rich...
Put your faith in a foodie. Of course, Max has tried all of the quintessential New Orleans specials. So he's... that video there was him trying a beignet. I am in love with beignets. I've got plenty of the mix from Café du Monde, and do you know what? They never get old. I have burned through, I think, 2 boxes of them now. They're fabulous. I love them so much. They're so tasty. Now, I've just noticed here, in the background here of Max's kitchen, has he got some of the beads? The endymion, is it, or the Mardi Gras beads? See that the colourful beads, or is it just beads? I love having a sneaky peek behind Max in his kitchen. He's got a Funko Pop here. Who's that little fella? Oh my gosh, it actually looks like him. Did somebody send a Funko Pop in of Max? That's pretty cool if it is him.
thick and savory dish that is the embodiment of many of the cultures that have populated that city. Native Americans to Africans, French, Spanish, Acadians, and a whole lot more. So today I am going way back to make one of the earliest New Orleans gumbo recipes from La Cuisine Creole, published in 1885. So thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video as I cook up a historic pot of gumbo, this time on Tasting History.
So this is a new video from Max, isn't it? This was only out a month ago. Oh.
So the recipe that I chose to cook today comes from the first cookbook which focused on New Orleans cuisine. It was published in 1885 and it's called La Cuisine Creole. Now the book actually includes 9 versions of gumbo, which is spelled gumbo, so I just chose the one that sounded most delicious to me. Gumbo with crabs or shrimp. To a pound of beef, add half a pound knuckle of ham, chop up both in inch pieces and fry them brown in 2 tablespoons of boiling lard. Add to them 4 large crabs cut up or a pound of peeled shrimps, or both if desired. Cut into this 4 dozen small okra pods, 1 large onion, a little red pepper, and salt to taste.
Now, in that list of ingredients there, I am kind of surprised that beef is added. Is that normal? I mean, you can never complain when there's a big combination of meats going on there. So we've got ham, seafood, no chicken at all, no chicken. I would have assumed it was more of like a chicken and seafood kind of based thing, or or the pork, I guess. But yummy. It sounds delicious.
Let all simmer on a slow fire for about 20 minutes, then fill up with warm water, enough to cover the contents 2 inches deep. Let this boil for 2 hours. If it becomes too thick, add as much water as required.
Stew.
If preferred, a chicken can be used instead of the beef.
Okay.
So this recipe includes what many people consider to be a key ingredient of gumbo, and that is okra, though not all gumbo recipes actually do include okra. Now, besides adding a flavor, it is also going to be a thickening agent. And what's cool about this cookbook is it seems to be the first that includes all 3 main thickening agents of gumbo. So the first method is the okra, and okra is a pod that grows in the mallow family, as in the group of plants that marshmallows were originally made of.
No way, I did not know that. I don't know where I thought okra grows. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've ever thought about that. I would have assumed it grew like a chili. Do you know what I mean? Like hanging there like a chili. So I've never actually tried okra, but I hear that it can, when it's overcooked, it can go almost quite slimy. So that makes absolute sense about it being a thickening agent.
Okra first grew in East Africa and was one of the key foods of the people of Central and West Africa. And during the Atlantic slave trade, it was brought to the Americas, where it was growing in Brazil by the 1650s and as far north as Philadelphia by the 1740s. In the Caribbean and the American South, it remained a staple crop used by the enslaved people, which is how it entered into gumbo. In fact, many people believe that that is actually where the word gumbo comes from, but more on that later.
Okay.
Now, okra was one of those foods that is much maligned, and that is because when you cut it open, it is filled with this sticky, viscous substance called mucilage.
I don't know why I'm surprised to see seeds there. Considering I just said I think it grows, I thought it would have grown a bit like a chili. So yeah, why am I surprised that there's so many seeds? There are a great deal, many seeds. It looks like there's even more than chilies. Oh, so that's, what did Max just call that? Is it mucilage? That's a much nicer word for slime.
Or mucilage. And it can make both the okra and the actual gumbo itself rather slimy. But if it is cooked properly, then it doesn't make it slimy, but simply thickens it. Now, the second method of thickening is called filet, or dried ground sassafras leaves. This also both enhances the flavor and the texture, and was originally used by the Choctaw Native Americans of the region to thicken their own soups.
So what does sassafras taste like? I'm going to have to try the filet that, that you've sent me, Brian. I'm going to have to give it a taste and see what it tastes like. I imagine it's just got a completely unique flavour. What does it taste like? Answer my own questions. I just need to go into the kitchen and try some.
When the French arrived in the 18th century, they called it filet, which means ropey or filament-like. And this is the more popular thickening agent for the Acadian style or Cajun style of gumbo. Now, there are 2 main styles. There's the Creole style and the Cajun style. And there is a lot of overlap between the 2. And really, the type of cuisine and the people themselves, it's very, very complicated how they are different and how they are alike. So this is a super simplification. When it comes to their cuisine, you can think of Creole as kind of being New Orleans-centric, and Acadian, or later Cajun, currently it's Cajun, being more rural and outside of the city. Again, super simplification, but there is that. And there is a lot of overlap, like the third thickening agent, and that is flour. They both use it very often. And sometimes this flour is added in a form called roux, which is fat and flour mixed together and then cooked for a long time.
This is way
and the Cajuns, they like to cook theirs for so long that it becomes a really, really dark chocolatey brown, sometimes almost black. Whereas the Creole style of roux is more of a light brown, kind of a, they often say like a peanut butter color. Now in older recipes, the Creole style doesn't call for roux at all, but calls for browned flour. And this recipe that I'm making today does not call for an actual roux, though the cookbook does include a recipe that does use roux. But it does say that all gumbo should be thickened with a little flour, browned if preferred. So I'm...
Oh, now I'm confused. what recipe should I go for? What should I do? Should I follow whatever Max does here?
Going to make some brown flour, which will not only thicken and color the soup, but will also give it a lot of flavor.
Oh, like a soup.
As far as the word soup goes, many people will tell you that gumbo is not a soup, but a stew, and others will say it's neither, it is gumbo. Gumbo is gumbo. And if that makes you happy, then by all means. But historically, it was always considered a soup, at least.
Really? Okay, that is... I love Max's videos. It goes into what some people might say an extraordinary length of detail. I appreciate it. I love all that detail. I love how thoroughly researched these recipes are. I greatly appreciate it, Max. So that's interesting. I like the opinion. It's neither. Gumbo is gumbo. I like that.
When written about in different cookbooks from the 19th century, even as far back as the 18th century. Like this cookbook from 1885 says, remarks on gumbos of okra and filet. This is a most excellent form of soup and is an economical way of using up the remains of any cold roasted chicken, turkey, game, or other meats. Serve gumbo with plain boiled rice. So historically, it was a soup, and who am I to argue with history? Now let's get to browning that flour, which does take a while. Now,
guys, do you want me to explain what I thought for a very long time, what I believed gumbo was? So there was no roux. I thought this was like, I'd say stew. A stew's probably closer to what I was making and what I thought might be gumbo. So wrong. So very, very wrong. So I'm very excited to try and make this myself. But yeah, there was no roux. It was more tomato based. The pitchforks. Don't hate me. That's what I thought. I thought it was more tomato based. I put chorizo in it. Oh my gosh. I can feel, I can even feel the, how many people I've just offended. Just to give you an idea of how wrong I was. And I thought the thickening agent in it was by adding rice to the stew and letting it stew and, you know, yeah. Oh, I was so wrong. But yes, there was no research that went into what I thought I was trying to recreate. To be fair, it was when my little girl was younger and she loves Princess and the Frog as well. So we tried to recreate it, but all I had to go on was literally just what it might have looked like from the Disney film or from what I might have cooked before and something similar to. So do forgive me. I'm wiser. I'm more educated now. Yeah, no filet, no okra, no roux. Oh, so what was it? It just wasn't a gumbo by any stretch of the imagination, was it? Anyway, carry on.
We only need a half cup of the browned flour, but you want to brown at least a full cup because much less than that, and it does have a tendency to burn. So take your cup or 120 grams of all-purpose flour and put it in an oven-safe pan and spread it evenly, and then set it in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 205 Celsius, and cook for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. But every 15 or 20 minutes, you need to take it out of the oven, stir up the flour a little bit, and then put it back in. This will make it so it doesn't burn.
I would be terrified.
Eventually, your flour should have the color of light brown sugar, and it is going to have a deep, sweet, nutty flavor, similar to some of the coffees that I get from today's sponsor, Trade. And now, with our brown flour all set, we can move on to the rest of the recipe, for which you will need 1 pound or 450 grams of beef cut in...
Oh gosh. Just interrupting Max there. Right, okay, just before we move on. So that blows my mind that you can toast flour, roast flour, brown it in the oven. And it has a nutty flavour, which is similar to types of coffee. My mind. It reminds me of, I've never thought to do things like this either. I've never thought to brown off flour outside of a roux. You know, I use a roux in making other sauces and things, but I've never thought to do that, to give that flavour a different dimension and different that flour a different dimension or a different flavour altogether. And it reminds me of a recent video I watched from Arnie Tex where his mum showed him how to make Spanish or Mexican rice, and they toast the rice to give it a different flavour again. I'm learning so many different things all the time.
into about 1-inch pieces. Some stew meat like short rib is perfect for this.
Oh.
1 large ham knuckle cut into small pieces. 1 pound of peeled shrimp
Never
and
use a
or
ham
some
knuckle
crab
either.
legs. You can also use whole crabs if you want. It just kind of depends on what you want to eat. Then 4 dozen small okra pods, or 3 dozen if they're large, 1 large yellow onion, and 1 red bell pepper or 1 red hot pepper without the seeds. The recipe actually is not clear, and they used both the hot pepper without the seeds and red bell pepper in different recipes from this period, so it's not entirely clear, so use whichever one you want.
Okay.
Now, the
Is it
traditional
meant to be
vegetables
spicy?
used in today's gumbo is often called the Holy Trinity, and that is onion, red or green bell pepper, I usually see green now actually, and celery. This recipe does not use celery. Now, partly it was because celery was oddly expensive in the 19th century, like really expensive. People would actually just put it out for show, but it was also incredibly popular to eat. There are recipes in this book that do include celery, but none of the gumbo recipes have celery, so it maybe just wasn't really popular in gumbo at the time.
Isn't it nuts? Like, we can pick celery up now for like 50 pence. It's one of the most cheapest vegetables. Brilliant for stocks and soups and just anything, adding it into anything really, isn't it? Just to get, you know, an excuse for one of your 5 a day. Does it count as one of your 5 a day? It can't be bad for you, can it? Either way. But yeah, it's super cheap these days. Oh, that's so crazy.
Also, let me know if you want me to do a whole video on the celery craze of the 19th century and just how celery got to be sometimes as expensive as caviar.
Ooh!
Celery. Now the recipe has us start by browning the meat. So melt a couple of tablespoons of the lard in a large pot over high heat, and once sizzling, add in about half the meat. If you have a really wide pot, you can do all the beef and pork at once, but you don't want to crowd the pot, so best to do it in a couple shifts. Okay. Let the meat cook for a minute or so, and then turn each piece, making sure you get a nice browning all over it. And it doesn't need to be fully cooked, we're just going to want some color on the outside. Okay. Then, because we are going to add browned flour, we need to remove the meat from the pot and add in the rest of the lard. Once it's really hot, then add the half cup of browned flour and whisk it together. Now, we are not making a roux per se, we are just mixing the fat and the flour. It's kind of like a proto-roux, but we're not going to let it cook for a long period of time.
I get you.
Other recipes in the book do have you do that. This one does not. So just mix it together, let it cook for a minute, and then add the meat back in along with the onion, the okra, and the bell pepper, along with some salt.
I know this isn't your typical roux, technically speaking, but let's just call it a roux for the sake of it. That must be the best tasting roux ever. You know, normally you've got, well, maybe butter, a bit of oil in the pan, and then you thicken it with just regular flour in my case. It's like elevated. It's like we've got lard, and then we've got brown flour. That might be the tastiest roux ever.
Say about 2 or 3 teaspoons will be a good start. And then make sure to stir all of that up together nice and well. And you'll notice that there is a slight deviation in what I'm doing versus what the recipe says to do, because the recipe actually says to add the shrimp and the crab right now. And I don't know if that's because that's actually what they want you to do, or if it's just sloppy recipe writing. I think it's that, because if you add the shrimp and crab right now, it is going to cook for 2.5 hours, and that will just leave you with lumps of rubber. It will be inedible, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to wait to add those until closer to the end. For now, it's just the meat and the vegetables. And do not yet add any water, because if you do, then all that mucilage in the okra will leak out into the water, and it will make for a mucusy gumbo at the end. Very slimy, not pretty. But if you just let it cook without the liquid for a while, it kind of reabsorbs all of that stuff, and then it just acts as a thickener, which is what we want, but we don't get the slimy texture, which is not what we want.
That is very, very interesting. Minor detail makes a massive difference though, doesn't it, guys? We don't want the mucilage. I love saying that. That might be my favorite word. And sassafras. Got 2 in here. Sassafras and mucilage.
And the recipe says to just let it cook without the water for 20 minutes. Okay. Just make sure to give it a good stir every minute or so nothing burns to the bottom of the pot. Then after 20 minutes, you can add about 2 liters of hot water, more or less. And as soon as you do, stir it in and scrape the bottom of the pot to get off the fond that formed when you were browning the meat. Again, this is going to add some flavor, and we need all the flavor that we can get in this, because you'll notice there are no spices really added to this gumbo, and most of the old recipes don't have any kind of spice or even herbs very often added. So
does the filet not count as this like a seasoning or a herb, or is there no filet in this one? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. That is super interesting. I was going to say we're going to make sure that all, as much flavor as possible is going into this, because there's so much liquid that goes into it. If it's somewhere in between a stew and a soup, liquid dilutes, of course, doesn't it? So you've got to be quite bold and punchy with the flavor for it to carry across.
As much flavor as we can get into this, we want to get in.
Yes.
Now let that gumbo come to a low boil and leave it to cook uncovered for 2 full hours, stirring frequently. Then as your gumbo boils in its gumbo pot, we can take a little trip down history lane to learn about the early origins of this most delicious dish.
Time for the history.
When looking for the history of a dish, I always like to start with the origins of the name. Gumbo in this case. And there are 2 prevailing theories on where that word comes from. Okay. The first is that it came from the Choctaw word for the ground sassafras, or filet, that is used as a thickener. That word was combo. That's not very far off from gumbo. Now the second theory, which I find a little bit more convincing, comes from another thickening agent, and that would be the okra. In the Bantu languages, which were spoken by many of the enslaved people from Central Africa, their word for okra was kitangambo, or gumbo. Now I doubt there will ever be a definitive answer which one was correct, but I do think it's interesting that both theories come from 2 of the thickening agents used in this soup.
And they don't sound massively dissimilar, don't they?
Do. Now, the first time that we see this word, gumbo, in reference to a dish, comes from 1764 and kind of has a bit of a dark past. It is in the document describing the interrogation of a 50-year-old enslaved woman named Julia, also known as Komba. She was interrogated regarding her knowledge about a runaway slave named Louis, also known as Foy. And in the transcript, the questioner asks Komba if she had not given him, Louis, a gumbo with Caesar and another black woman. Now, unfortunately, while we get the word, we don't get any description of what she was putting into this dish, though you wouldn't expect that in that kind of document, of course. For that, we have to go a little while later to 1784, when a French journal on natural history describes the sassafras tree.
Is it not possible that maybe the word in the context of the woman's interrogation, that they were referring to that, because it sounds like gumbo, doesn't it? Maybe that is the word for like a thickened soup. Thickened with sassafras. No, like a general term.
In Louisiana, one also makes use of its leaves, which are gathered in July, dried in the shade and in open air, and then coarsely powdered. A pinch of this powder is enough to make a broth viscous. It is this dish that is called in America gumbo. However, one must distinguish this American stew from that which is called gumbo fevi. The latter is made with the pods of a species of large mallow. All parts of this plant contain a viscous juice, and the pods, when green, make water even more glutinous than do the leaves of sassafras. The pods of this mallow are, of course, okra. And the author seems to have tried both versions of gumbo, and, well, the first time one eats these gumbos, one feels a strong repugnance because of this viscosity. But after having tasted it 2 or 3 times, the repugnance disappears, and one would then wish to eat it every day.
It grows on you.
The Creoles of Louisiana love it passionately. They cannot eat any other soup than that which they make with broth, pepper, sassafras, and maize or rice cooked in water. It must be admitted that this soup is much finer and much better tasting than all our bread soups. Gumbo is made with all kinds of meats, poultry, and fish. It is also made with shrimp and crawfish. That made with cabbage is the least esteemed. So even as far back as 1784, over 240 years ago, there are already many, many variations on this dish. It had become as varied as the people that were making this dish. And that is one of the things that I really love about New Orleans. It is a true melting pot. In both the history, the architecture, the people, and the cuisine, there are influences from Native Americans, Africans, Caribbeans, the French, French-speaking Acadians, the Spanish, Germans, Italians, and just Americans in general. Now, some of these groups, like the Germans and the Italians, don't actually arrive in New Orleans until later in the mid and late 19th century. But as early as 1803, New Orleans and its cuisine and people are already very multicultural. On December 4th of that year, 1803, Pierre Clement de Lossac wrote about a ball he attended in New Orleans. He was the last French colonial governor of Louisiana, and in 1803 was in the midst of facilitating the handoff of the Louisiana Territory to the United States. And when he walks into this ball, he talks about how he hears all of these different languages, different American languages, as well as different dialects of French, different dialects of Spanish, and the dances themselves were just as varied. The guests danced boleros, gavottes, English dances, French and English quadrilles and galopades. In addition, hundreds ate, standing up here and there. As a local touch, 24 gumbos were served, 6 or 8 of which were sea turtle.
Oh, no.
Now, sea turtle is not so common in gumbos today, but back then, sure was popular.
Oh, poor fellas. Leave the turtles alone. Love turtle soup. Oh my gosh. So it's interesting that this, governor, sorry, I missed that, this Frenchman here, he mentions all the different dialects and the different languages that he hears and the different dances and the different foods and the ways of eating food, standing up, throwing tradition out of the window and throwing caution to the wind. I think he's referring to that in quite a positive light, which is unusual, I think, given the time era. But I just think that's lovely. That's so endearing.
What I love, though, is that even in 1803, gumbo had already become a metaphor for the cultural mix of Louisiana and New Orleans. Now, unfortunately, none of those 24 gumbo recipes seem to have survived, and that is partly because American cookbook writing was still very much in its infancy, but also because those recipes would have been made by enslaved people, and very few of their recipes got written down by them until after the Civil War. When their recipes did get written down, it was by the people for whom they were cooking those recipes. People like Mary Randolph, who, while not from New Orleans, included one of the first gumbo recipes in her 1824 cookbook, The Virginia Housewife. It actually has 2 important recipes, the first being gums, a West India dish. This is okra stewed with salt and pepper and then served with butter. Now, it's not a stew, but it does make the connection between the word gumbo, or gums, and okra. But
I never thought about that. Yeah, the term gumbo, gum, is it like a gummy okra? I think it's referring to the okra at this point. I'm quite convinced. It's referring to the okra.
But she does have a second recipe that is basically for a stew that is gumbo, but she doesn't call that gumbo, she calls that okra soup. And it includes pork and fowl, veal knuckle, and then also lima beans and squash. Then it also calls for it to be thickened with a butter mixed with flour. That is a sort of roux.
Yeah.
So this is not really the gumbo that New Orleans would have been known for, but it does seem that similar dishes were being eaten all over the South at the time. Now, to get that New Orleans connection, we actually have to go to Philadelphia, of all places.
Oh, okay.
There, in 1840, Miss Eliza Leslie included 2 recipes for gumbo in her cookbook. These both included okra and tomatoes, or she called them tomatoes, and then one had beef and the other had no meat, a green gumbo meant for Lent. But she does say of both types that it should be like a jelly and is a favorite New Orleans dish.
I'm glad someone else has put tomato in their gumbo. That makes me feel a little less ashamed of myself. So I'm getting the impression around this time era, the word has got out about how amazing gumbo is. Everybody wants to try it. And it kind of sounds like, it's almost gone viral. Or what viral would have been, 200 years ago. But yeah, it's kind of like a trendy dish that's really caught on, and all of a sudden everybody wants to try one, and you're getting imitations or variations everywhere. Like outside of Louisiana, people are doing their own spin on it. But I think given in combination with maybe the lack of recording of genuine, authentic recipes, you're going to get like almost a bit of a mistranslation. So people are going to get like a false idea about what a gumbo is because they're eating a variation of it, not a genuine recipe, not a genuine gumbo. And if that's the recipe that they're going to record, like the Virginia Housewife, it's, you know, in a very, very well-known documented cookbook, that's going to carry forward, and that's going to be what people assume a gumbo is. So kind of crossed wires.
A few years later, in 1847, the Carolina Housewife included another recipe for New Orleans gumbo, but this time it did not include okra. Instead, it called for turkey, beef, and oysters cooked with onion and then seasoned to your taste, and just before taking up the soup, stir in, until it becomes mucilaginous, 2 teaspoons of pulverized sassafras leaves. So it's clear that by then both methods of thickening were around, as well as an early version of the third, that is, the roux. Now, most of the recipes of the 19th century don't really talk about making a roux, but rather just mixing fat and flour, but then you don't cook it for a long time like a roux is supposed to be done, until you get to the cookbook that we're cooking from today, 1885, where in one of the 9 recipes for gumbo, it does describe making a roux. It's in the recipe for gumbo filet with oyster number 2, and it says, fry a tablespoon of flour in a tablespoonful of lard. Let it brown slowly so as not to scorch. But really, roux does not become super common in gumbos until the 20th century. But then and now, it's very, very standard in most recipes that I've seen, and very often it is cooked so long that it becomes super dark, especially in the Cajun style, even black, and it's absolutely delicious. Also, a little side note about the book that we're working from today, La Cuisine Creole, and the man who compiled it. He didn't actually write the recipes, he just gathered them. He was a fascinating fellow. His name was Patrick Lafcadio Hearn, and he was actually born on the Greek island of Lefkada before moving to Ireland, where his father was from. Later, he was abandoned by his family and sent to America, and after some hard times in Cincinnati, he became a reporter. Well, after the Civil War, he became one of the first people to write a lot about the life of the formerly enslaved people, and he went around the area gathering lyrics to the songs that they sang, preserving them for posterity because many of them had never been written down.
That is a very... sadly, I would say it's probably an unusual mentality and sympathy towards, you know, African Americans, wrongly so, but quite an unusual character there. Because I'm assuming, given the time era, for him to have, you know, such an interest in recording lyrics, recipes from African Americans, I imagine that could have been looked down upon by an awful lot of people. Yeah, quite the eccentric, fascinating individual there.
He basically did the same thing when then he went to New Orleans, but instead of song lyrics, he did it with recipes and other bits of New Orleans history that was starting to be lost. Then later in life, he moved to Japan, became a Buddhist, and studied jujutsu until he died at 54.
He's ahead of his times, isn't he? This is a very, very forward-thinking man.
Just a really interesting guy, I think.
Yeah.
As for his gumbo recipes, they are missing one ingredient that has since become very popular in many gumbos, and that...
Is it the sausage? Is it andouille sausage? I was going to ask, guys, I've not heard any mention. I was just going to say, any mention of a tasty French sausage? I know, I'm really immature. That sounds... No, I'm not going to say that. There's no mention of the andouille sausage.
That is sausage.
Sausage.
Now, there are questions to where
Sausage
exactly the sausage in gumbo came from, but many people believe that it started with the Germans when they came in the 1850s because they did bring a lot of sausage making to New Orleans, but
this is a French
both Spanish and French sausages did already exist in New Orleans as well. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence of them going into gumbo, and the first time that we do see sausage put into gumbo, it doesn't really specify a type. Today, it is very often andouille sausage, which is absolutely wonderful, and that is actually my favorite part of gumbos. Unfortunately, it is not in the one that I'm making today. It is in the one that I had in New Orleans. Loved it.
Could have thrown it in.
It's not in the one I'm making today, so I will have to content myself with other things that I love, like the crab and the shrimp.
Yes.
And now, after 2 hours of simmering, you can add those shrimp and crab into the pot.
Something tells me, I reckon after he's turned the camera off, I reckon he's fried up an endive. Thrown it in. Just for his pleasure.
Along with any more salt that you might need. Stir it all in and let it cook for 5 to 7 minutes or just until the shrimp have curled up nicely, and then it is ready to serve with some Carolina rice. And here we are.
Carolina rice?
New Orleans.
It's not soup, it's not stew. Gumbo is gumbo.
It's an oily,
No. I'm hearing a lot of people saying the same things, and this is what makes me really, really want to go to New Orleans. Everyone says the same thing. There's just a different atmosphere. There's a different vibe. The music, the architecture, the people. I believe you all are very friendly and lovely over there. But oh, the accent. Oh, can't not mention the accent. It's one of my favorites. I do love that accent. But yeah, there's just so many things that they entice me, guys. I'm called to New Orleans, or New Orleans, I should say.
So if you get a chance, go to New Orleans, even just for a few days, just
a few
see
weeks.
it, and then the history. Amazing, amazing history there. And yeah, I've been a couple times. I'd love to go back. Don't go during the summer. The weather's horrible. But during the spring, fall, just lovely. And eat while you're there. And if you can't get there yet, then make some gumbo at home, because it's absolutely worth it. And I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Well, I'm going to have to follow Max's advice. Can't get there yet, not quite yet. So I'm just going to have to make a gumbo. He didn't compare it to, well, he did compare it to some of the was it the Cajun gumbos that he's tried in New Orleans. Yeah, he didn't compare the quality of it. Like, maybe you just can't. Maybe it's on a similar kind of level. Don't know. I'd like to think that the gumbos that I've made there today have been refined over the years. Yes, they've taken a staple, brilliant recipe, an authentic recipe, but just over the years, it's just become not even refined. Just had extra little added bits to make it pop and sing and just even more delicious, like the addition of the sausage. You know, just little tiny things like that. But oh gosh, I'm so jealous seeing how much Max genuinely enjoyed that. That's the first time I've ever seen him go, oh my God. He's genuinely surprised. So you know he loved it. It's just, you can't hide that expression, can you? When you try food, you can't hide whether you like it or not. It's all there on your face. Literally, in some cases, or in Max's case. Quite the mess. Oh, I wouldn't mind making a mess to eat that gumbo though. It looks absolutely delicious. I'm gonna have to try it, guys. Got the sausage, got the filet. I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to give it a go. Well, my lovelies, I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.